We have everybody here. Mr. Gutman, the mobility update that you've been trying to do for months, you are on.
So good evening, everyone. I'm Dave Gutman. I'm co-chair of the Mobility Network team, and I'll be presenting with Nancy Darga, also the co-chair of Mobility. And tonight, Nancy and I are going to walk through our updated Mobility Network study, which we first presented to Council about 16 months ago. And for the sake of efficiency, if it is possible to hold your questions to the end, that'd be very helpful.
They will.
So I'm going to spend a few minutes on this slide that you're looking up right here, because the information that follows does require kind of a setup. So let me start, if I could, with a playful insight, compliments of Anna Mary Lee Volek, that the map you see here, it makes you think of Northville as a quilt. It's warm and colorful. It's been passed down from generation to generation. It's precious to all of us, and we all have a piece of it. It's our Northville. But it's in need of some major patchwork. As you'll notice from the circles on the map, there's a lot to be done with our old city. Some of this work is happening right now, and some will be later with the new development. But all of these actions must work together for the good of everyone. As you can see, the study tried to cover a good portion of the city's street network, and that's not easy to convey in just a few minutes. We were up here before. Our study was long and complicated then, but taken piece by piece, though, it's not as bad. So to help you, we're going to break this presentation up into two sections. First, I'm going to present the high-level concepts of the study, some of our governing tools. Then Nancy will jump up and get into the detail of our recommendations. So she has the hard part. Finally, we will conclude with an ask of City Council on how to go forward. So that's something for you guys to look forward to. And so now I'm going to do a brief circle around this map so you're familiar with the scope of our study, and then we can move on and you can watch the little pointer go. Let's start at the bottom and go clockwise around the ring. We have the 7-mile corridor, everything labeled S1. It's a huge part of our effort to better integrate the city of Northville with future neighborhoods, with Hines Drive and the park. You'll notice there's 2 roundabout recommendations and the southern access road into the Downs. We're going to talk more about that later. We then go up Center Street, S5, which in the past has been a thoroughfare with high volumes, higher speeds, often heavily congested. On this segment, we want to create an environment that is more comfortable to live with through the use of traffic calming techniques like bump outs, parallel parking, lowering the speed limit. Then we'll swing to the top of the map, and that's S6, and discuss very important issues, which you're very familiar with now, within the core blocks of the city, such as whether the main intersection downtown can safely stay closed and how it affects the whole network. As part of the core analysis, Katy Street, both east and west of Center, were evaluated for traffic capacity, parking, and pedestrian safety. Next, if you follow Katy going east and you complete the connection with the Main Street bend, we need to do that in a way that's effective and safe for getting across, as you might need to do on a future Riverwalk trail. We then come down to the Beale Street Bridge and recommend changes there to prevent this from becoming a thoroughfare for new traffic pushing into the neighborhood. Finally, we work down River Street and propose, quote, a real road like was done in that long ago study called Main Street 78 that included bump outs, parallel parking spaces, and good walkway on both sides. And that brings us back to the 7-mile corridor where you can see action is needed for safer crossing to Hines Park and for getting to our future farmers market. Okay, let's move ahead. Slide time will drop significantly from this point. Let's start with some background information. For those of you who may need a quick review, these are the important points. I'm going to kind of hit them all. New development and growth are captivating opportunities for the city, but they will bring safety, traffic, and disruption concerns. The Mobility Network team was formed out of members of the Sustainability team, which I'm a chair, and the River Restoration Task Force, of which Nancy's a chair. We identified challenges to having safe, walkable streets, to getting effective and balanced traffic flow, and making fluid connections between all our neighborhoods. We considered mobility and connectivity in total, working on a process to home in on sites that warranted urgent attention. Our conclusions focus on 5 critical and specific action areas important to the experience of Northville as the future unfolds. So this next slide I'll do quickly. I know it's very busy, but we've already gone around the ring on the first slide. I know this is detailed, but it is essentially the same slide from our presentation of November of 2021. Same text, same 5 actions of top concern, the old map, called a reminder slide. The tough point is we were here with you over a year ago, and we're back, and you see the headline that says, still 1 year later. Not a lot of movement. It's the same basic list. But since then, we've done a great deal of new analysis with the hope that this bolsters our case for the needed actions. Moving on, this is a complicated slide. So I'll try to get through it as simply as possible. The headline on the bottom says, the mobility team verified traffic concerns. As you can see, this slide dives deep into traffic engineering, but it's in the deck because it provides the statistical analysis for, quote, why we need to make changes in our roads. Our position is Northville has a traffic problem, both pre-COVID and post-COVID. Very simply, the big chart with the colors and the grade letters tell you where the problems are. But just for credibility, to let you know what this team did, the reference books we utilize for process are shown in the upper left. The Traffic Engineering Handbook and the Highway Capacity Manual are longtime Bibles for conducting traffic studies. We also made use of some very sophisticated software for the traffic analysis. We made every effort to analyze our streets as paid professionals would do so. So we analyzed 34 street locations with comparisons to the Fleece and Vandenbrink traffic impact study, which was done in the 2021-22 timeframe. As you can see from the 2 columns labeled F and V and me is mobility, we attempted to mirror their study parameters. The colored boxes on the chart show the level of service for each intersection graded from A to F. And that ranks the delay suffered by drivers on the road. The reds are the E's and F's, which are fails. And as you can see, there are more than just a few. The important point here is when comparing our traffic analysis to the traffic impact study, there were no substantive differences. We matched up line by line. The difference is how the results were interpreted and the resulting narrative. The study reported that the traffic doesn't require major correction in Northville, that we do not have substantial traffic problems. So we went to the blue chart on the left. And that is the work we did beyond matching up to the traffic impact study. It validates the analysis of the big chart, and it tells us that fails do matter. They are traffic issues. We did a statistically valid simulation and found that the wait time at, say, the Katy Center intersection, for example, resulted in repeated fails. See how the bars go up well above the red lines. The wait times were way too long, and that's something that you need to address across the board with the other fails in this analysis. And Nancy will address the most urgent areas. So with that, you now see all the grimble that we got into. What you see here are projects that have come into our purview since our last study. We're now dealing with several new items: the Foundry Flats development, the Downs, the pedestrian and traffic plan, and the downtown pedestrian plan. All these are new things to consider impacting our analysis. So very quickly, let me give you a primer on the worksheet shown in the center, which will be helpful when Nancy presents. This is a snippet of our action sites list. Let's go through the symbols. The check marks in the boxes tell us who the lead is or who our partner is for each location, whether it's F&V, the city, or Wayne County. Looking at the key that's in the top right, a box in yellow means special attention required. Good hands indicate urgent care is needed for pedestrian safety. And the civil engineer hard hat guy means an engineering study is required. We did this for the 27 street locations. Okay, that's your lesson for today. Here is our updated problem statement. Let me introduce it. The Mobility Network team applauds the city's progress toward our stated goals of safe, walkable streets and having effective and balanced traffic flow and fluid connections around the city. We return to you now to emphasize urgent needs that remain outstanding and to ask that they be addressed. Some of these needs are within the scope and capability of consultants that are already on board. We are pleased to reinforce this work. Other unaddressed action sites include those we consider to be very beneficial, but also the most difficult and costly to implement. Linkage to Foundry Flask, the Downs, daylighting the river, Farmers Market, and additional projects throughout the city also bring challenging timing pressures. Further engineering work is required here to address 5 of our most urgent needs, and we're going to recap those for you at the end. So the bottom headline here says, best livable volume as a Northville goal. This is a three slide set. Each one builds on the other, leading to an important conclusion and a major recommendation. So hang with me on these slides. First, if you're reading the text, future volume is not something you measure, it's something you choose. And we ask 2 questions. What volume of traffic does Northville want in the future? And what blend of either through traffic or destination traffic do we want? Depending on the design of your streets, you can adjust how much volume goes where. For example, by changing the speed limit, using bump outs, using traffic calming techniques, that kind of stuff. This map is a regional view. The check marks are how people get to Northville and or through Northville. We want to have some control over how much of that volume comes through the middle of Northville. The second slide is a city view. The headline, managing speed and volume, calming and dispersion. Within town, good traffic distribution requires multiple choices to achieve best livable volume. So you have to manage your traffic flows to do that. Our traffic network uses these 3 check marks, these 3 main ways to get around downtown. The last one is in the future. It's how we get through town. It's not a straightforward route because we have changed the traffic flow. You know this from experience, you know this from tonight, and you can see this with the pink highlighted streets. That's how we get around town today. And that leads us into the last point, which is completing connectivity disperses volume, which strongly aids safety and comfort. And we want to disperse traffic in a way that promotes a fairly shared burden of vehicles throughout our neighborhoods. We heard all about that tonight. We don't want an unbalanced distribution through what has been an unplanned traffic dispersal. Moving on. Okay, this is the final chapter. Completing connectivity for best mobility through town. Our goal is repeated up top. Consistent with these goals, we recommend the following. Open Center Street and implement traffic calming to slow things down and allow for event closures. Open Main Street and go with either event closures or seasonal closures. And finally, importantly, build the southern connection at Hines 7 Mile and what will be New Griswold with the Downs and beyond. If we don't find a way out of that southern part of the Downs, you are essentially creating one big cul-de-sac at the south end, and that's not going to help. Therefore, we conclude, as the purple says, this reestablishes the north-south and east-west connections through the business district. And with the building of the new southern link, we restore the city grid. This ensures the most effective connectivity through time. Very quickly, bicycles depend on shared lanes and wide walks. I'm not Jeremy. I only do 4,000 to 5,000 miles a year as a cyclist. But mobility is not just about cars. So we looked at the interconnection with bicycles. This slide shows recommendations for accommodating bikes and bike lanes within a city. And these are great, but I'm not going to go into the detail because what's important is that given the constraints of our existing street grid, we can't accommodate full bike lanes that are well connected through town. Therefore, we're recommending that we handle bike travel using shared lanes. That is, having cars and bikes safely share the traffic lanes, and where possible, planning wider sidewalks, which are especially helpful to bikers who aren't comfortable with cars. Simple as that. Finally, taming cars with bump outs and parallel parking. This is also a nod to our past city efforts. We have a great history in trying to do the right thing, and much of it is related to traffic and safety. You can go all the way back to Main Street 78, and that's a history lesson for another time, but a lot was done. Excellent work was also done on the strategic plan of 2006. And the work continued with 2009 streetscape plan, and finally, the secondary streets design standards of 2016, which the DDA supported. From all this, we received consistent advice for what we're recommending here, which is to slow down traffic by using bump outs and parallel parking, was part of that. It's not a new idea. You saw it in all these reports, but it is an effective one. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Nancy for a closer look at our action site recommendations.